Hello everyone, my name is Shubham and welcome to I am Cracker Jack. Today we'll be looking into the working of Python. So before moving to Python, we'll try to understand what is a compiler based language and what is an interpreter based language, and then I'll show you like how can we see a bytecode in Python. So before moving to that, let's understand that what is a compiler based language. So when I talk about compiler based language, we have C Sharp and Java. Those are the common examples and the most frequently being used server side language. So why those are compiler based language? Because when we write a source code, we do not directly run the code. There are two phases. One is the compiler phase, which is the compilation phase, and the other is the execution phase, which is done by the interpreter. So what happens whenever I write a code? So whenever I write a code and we uh, build it, so what happens? The code is passed to a lexer where your lexer will be converting your code into tokens. And once it is broken into tokens, it is given to the parser. So the parser work is to create a syntax tree. We call it as an abstract syntax tree. Once the tree is created, it is given to the compiler where the compiler will check for the syntax error. If there is any syntax error, it will throw back with the list of errors. And if suppose there are no errors, it goes to interpreter, wherein the interpreter will convert or translate your code into object, and that object would contain a bytecode, which is nothing but a source code getting converted into series of bytes, and that bytecode goes to the machine and executes. So this is the flow which we know that takes place in any compiler based language. Now when I talk about Python, what is different in Python which makes Python unique or di- different from other language? So in Python we do not have compiler in between, which means there is no compilation phase in Python. That means Python comes with only execution phase, and that is the reason Python is also known as dynamic language, because everything happens dynamically. Now the next question comes is, what happens to the syntax checking? Who does the syntax checking? So to answer to this question, the syntax checking is being done by the interpreter itself, which means in Python, the interpreter is more advanced and more flexible to take more responsibility what other language interpreter is taking. So here Python is doing the syntax check, and also it is doing the conversion translation from high level to low level language or source code to bytecode. Now how does it check the syntax? So if I again uh, see the functionality of a compiler. So what compiler does is compiler start scanning the code from top to bottom, and whenever it finds any error in any particular line, it does not throw the error. Instead, it notes down the error, and once it is done with the scanning or the till the last line, it throws us the list of errors with all the line numbers and the type of errors. But in case of Python, interpreter works in a different way. What does interpreter do? Interpreter will go through, start with line number 1 and go through line by line, and whenever there is an error, it will throw the error instantly. It will not wait for the completion of the scanning, which means in Python we get one error at a time, and Python does line by line execution or line by line syntax checking. Okay. Now this gives one more flexibility to us to see like how the code is being converted into bytecode, because since there is no compiler in between, we do not have the restriction, and we can see what is happening beyond compilation, beyond the compilation phase or the syntax checking phase. So to understand that, let me create a small source code. So what I'm trying to do is I'll be creating a small function which will be trying to do addition of two numbers. Okay, so let's say I have created a function add where I'm passing two numbers a and b, and what I'm doing is I'm just creating a plus b. Okay, sorry, syntax error. I have done a slight mistake, and b print a plus b. Okay, so let me execute it and see whether it works or not. Yes, it works. So my this small function is working. So I'm considering this as my source code, and I have not got any syntax error because everything's fine. The syntax wise everything's fine. So now what happens? I'm interested in checking what is there with add. So I see a drop down, and that drop down mentions some list of functions. So I'm more interested to check what does this give me. So this gives me a code object which is available at so and so address. Okay, so this code object is nothing but the conversion what interpreter has done. So the source code got converted into an object, and this object, if I check, this object contains few functions which could give me information about my source code, like how many arguments are there, what are the constant if any, what is the file name, function name, a variable name, stack size, all those things it can show, it can give me. Along with that, it also gives me something called bytecode. So this is nothing but the bytecode, which is the conversion of our source code. So this is what the interpreter has converted. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me import a library disassembler this, and what I'm trying to do is I'll try to disassemble or decode my bytecode into assembly language. Okay, let's see how it goes, because we know that everything goes as an instruction to the machine. So let's try to decode it using this, and then I'm copying this, and then yeah, so we can see that we are getting the machine instruction whatever is going to the machine. So wherein we have four columns. The first two columns is not relevant to the machine. So the first column represents the line number, the second column represents the description, and the last two columns represent the binary conversion and the memory allocation and the operation. So basically the machine understands the last two columns, third and fourth column. Now again, from where does this second column is coming in picture? So there is a wrapper or there is a library which is written, and interpreter goes to the library while scanning the code and converts into respected description basis. So this is what the interpreter is doing, and this is how the Python is working. So indeed every language works in the similar way, but the only difference is in Python we can have an inside view of everything, since it is an interpreter based language and we are directly talking to interpreter. But in other language we are restricted in compiler, and we cannot get access or get a view of what is happening beyond compilation. Okay, so I hope the yep, yeah, so I hope it's clear, and hope you like this video. So please subscribe to my channel and just stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.